Welcome to Wake Up with Joni, where ancient wisdom and modern life come together to give you powerful tools to fulfill your highest potential. Each week, we explore timeless principles that help us live with greater awareness, create healthier relationships, and lead lives rooted in purpose, compassion, and freedom. Whether it's a conversation with John, a special guest, or practical reflection from Stop, Look, Choose Your Journey to Peace and Freedom, I'm glad you're here. So let's get started. Today we're having coffee with John English, a best-selling author and warrior on the practical Toltec Path of Freedom. If you've been listening to Wake Up with Joni, John. So thank you so much for being here again.
It's a real pleasure to have the opportunity to have coffee with you and spend some time talking about some things that have had such a great impact on our lives.
Yes, I love both coffee and all of that. So today I really wanted to dive into something that I have noticed that people have a confusion around, whether it's in relationships or in leadership, and it's called power. They tend to think of it as a negative, as a power over or a control kind of thing. So what is power in the Toltec wisdom?
I too had a lot of misconceptions about power and grew up like a lot of people thinking that power was the ability to get other people to do what you want and associated it with power over other people or power to make decisions for other people. And those misconceptions followed me into when I began to learn about the Toltec Path of the Warrior. And it took me a while to get my arms around something about power. According to the Toltec tradition, and what I really believe in my heart to be true, is that power has nothing to do with any of those things that we previously mentioned. It's not about power over other people, power to manipulate, it's really the essence that powers the universe, that creates all things. And I really do like to refer to it as an essence. And what's fascinating to me, and I learned this early on in the teachings, is that Toltecs have been studying power for tens of thousands of years. And by their own admission, they say that they know very little about power than when they first started studying it. Just a little bit more than when they first started studying it. And they refer to it as the infinite mystery. Now, I guess I should back up just a little bit and say that really the word Toltec means man or woman of knowledge. It doesn't have anything to do with any particular culture. It just means, Toltec word means man or woman of knowledge. And they pass down this knowledge from generation to generation for tens of thousands of years. So part of the knowledge that they pass down, although there's very little known about it, is about power. And what we know about power is that it moves, expands, and creates more. It keeps moving and expanding and creating more from its unfathomable center, wherever that is, or whatever it is. And it also folds in upon itself for renewal and what we refer to as death. Now, one of the things that we do know about power is that it can most accurately be described as unconditional love in motion. So as you can see, it has nothing to do with what most people associate power with.
Yes. I would think that if people use power in a negative way, that version of power, and they control, manipulate, that there's an element of will involved, they really have a choice, and it's going to backfire on them. Can you talk about that?
That is correct. There is an element of will involved in using power, and everybody gets to choose how they use this power. It actually powers all things. I like to tell the people that I share the teachings with that power is always lining up behind them and essentially flowing through all of their actions and creating whatever it is that they focus on. Now, the interesting thing about using power is that since it is unconditional love in motion, and that unconditional love in motion is always trying to uplift, support, and uplift all life, those that use the power in, you could kind of say, for lack of a better way of putting it, inappropriately or to manipulate other people, actually that does end up backfiring on them eventually. And since they are operating from a lower vibrational frequency than the people who are operating in unconditional love, that power actually gets necked down. So they have less access to the power than the average person who recognizes it as unconditional love in motion and really does their level best to use that power to uplift all of life.
So basically, if people are in alignment with their higher selves or in integrity with all of life, then they are aligned with the love in motion, the power as a positive force.
Yeah, they're aligning with unconditional love in motion. And warriors will use the word impeccability.
Yes.
So as long as the person is being impeccable, what is happening is they are constantly getting refined by their experiences in life to move up to different levels of being able to use power, which has some real practical benefits for the person's life. You could say things go a lot better for them. So it's really fascinating, the subject of power and how it powers all things and all action and how we use it, how it's always lining up behind us. And yeah, it's just a fascinating subject. And one really super practical piece of the Toltec Path of the Warrior is that we acknowledge this and we are constantly working on becoming more and more impeccable, or increasing our level of impeccability is probably a good way to say it. And the way I like to refer to impeccability and the meaning of it, because it's a big word and it can sometimes scare people a little bit, is it just means to show up fully and do your best. To show up fully and do your best in trying to uplift all of life.
So impeccability is about doing your best. And you mentioned use power. So how do people use power with impeccability? And how do they tap into that flow, so to speak?
Well, the way that people can come into more of a conscious relationship with power is to realize that first that you're using it in all things. In everything you do, you are using power. A great way to begin to use power consciously with consistency, let me put it that way. A way to do that is to focus on moving the feeling of love. And moving the feeling of love into all you do, even your everyday thing, like cooking meals for your family, taking care of your property, the work you do on your job. Just really try to wake up to that over and over and over again throughout the day and focus on moving the feeling of love. And then pay attention to when you're not moving that feeling and what's going on with you mentally and emotionally. And that introduces a whole other practical side of the Toltec teachings that we'll have to get into in another episode about the beauty of the techniques and how they just continually make your life better more interesting, and more empowering.
Awesome. So how will people know that they are connected or in alignment with their impeccability, with their power?
Really, all you have to do is remind yourself over and over again throughout the day to show up fully and do your best. And one way that people get off track is they make decisions to do things they don't want to do. And then they make themselves a victim and they bemoan the situation and they complain about it and they really get into a negative attitude about it, as opposed to doing what you really want to do and consciously working with power within that.
Yes. And I was thinking as you were talking about just do your best. Sometimes my best is better than another day. So how do people allow for being human, for being imperfect?
This is a great question and one that I really love to address. And after studying the Toltec teachings for a while, it dawned on me that my best today is better than my best was a month ago.
Mm-hmm.
And definitely better than my best was a year ago. And that is due to the experience that I've had in my life. And it's true for every listener. If you pause to consider it, your best today is actually better than your best yesterday. And one of the funny quirks of human nature is that we spend all this time in regret and beating ourselves up for mistakes that we've made in the past and things that we've done in the past and how we could have done something different just 10 minutes ago. And the truth of the matter is that you didn't have the experience 10 minutes ago of this particular situation. And so there's an aspect of the Warriors' teachings that are about being alert and wide awake. So wake up with Joni. They're about staying alert and being wide awake and just being present in the moment and showing up fully and doing your best. I like to tell the people that learn from me that beating yourself up is not allowed.
Mm-hmm. So, as you're talking, a question came to me. You were talking about judging ourselves for our past and beating ourselves up. And how I was thinking how people put power behind that. But what it is, they put energy behind it, which intensifies that feeling of negativity, of blaming oneself. So then the question came to me, there is a power. So if you could delineate or define or make a distinction between the power that we're talking about, unconditional love and motion, and the power people put behind things that do not serve them.
Well, the interesting thing about putting power, which power is always lining up behind you. So it doesn't matter if you're putting it towards something positive or something negative. Now you are putting a much higher vibration and thereby more power towards something positive than you are negative, but you're still channeling power into it. So what happens is if you're beating yourself up, you are first telling the universe that that's what you want and that you are going to use the power for it. And then what happens is power lines up behind you as you beat yourself up and you create more situations in your life to beat yourself up for. Because you're telling the universe that that's what you want. And so the techniques of the Warriors' Path are all designed to get anyone to stop doing that, to stop doing whatever it is. And it's fascinating because power set it up perfectly. Because if you are using power to get down on yourself, that will only increase in intensity, and one day you will find yourself fed up and you're no longer going to use power to do that.
So then you can shift using power to stop that.
Exactly.
More on that.
There's an old warrior saying that says nothing like a crisis to get the person on board with believing in themselves and moving onto the path of becoming an empowered human being and actually fulfilling the human being's potential, which is awe-inspiring. So that's just the way that power set it up, is that you will create different crises in your life to get you to address the focus on the pieces of yourself that are not in alignment with your true nature.
So how do people put power behind their potential?
One great way to put power behind your potential is to vision on it. And to vision on what it is that you want to create. So to use the previous context, vision on what your life would be like if you no longer had regret. Vision on what your life would be like if you no longer beat yourself up. I mean, consider that. That would be amazing if that's an issue for you. I can tell you from experience, it is awesome.
So people out there listening, they're saying, well, this sounds really good. You make it sound really easy. You've been doing this for a couple of decades or more. So how do people begin to recognize their own power and harness it?
Well, there's many different ways that I haven't found anything better than the 4 principal techniques of the warrior. And one of them I mentioned was visioning. It's a part of the technique of dreaming. And the Toltec techniques are very simple, but like what you alluded to, they might not be easy to apply in some situations. So meditation is a great way to get in touch with your mental body and your thoughts and your emotions. Another aspect of the Toltec teachings that are super helpful is they have many aphorisms or wisdom sayings. And these aphorisms give us some keys. We can use them almost like mantras to operate differently in our daily lives starting right away. So let's say, to bring together some of the things that we've been talking about, I have a situation in my life and I'm upset about it and I'm thinking way too much about it. I'm fixated on it and I have all of these negative feelings about it. There is an aphorism that says no thing is as it appears to be. So I can remind myself of that aphorism. Hey, wait, no thing is as it appears to be. And this is happening for a reason, and that reason is to help me evolve. So, what is really going on here with this situation?
Okay. Do you have another aphorism in connection to power you'd like to share before I ask the next question?
One of the main aphorisms of the Toltec teachings are that there is one spirit, one life, and one power. And you are a part of that, not apart from it. Lots of different areas we could go into with that, but that is one that was really helpful for me. Because what it did is it began to chip away at my separation and my separative thinking. So I have this challenge going on in my life. I'm not separate from it. It didn't happen to me. I am the creator of it so that I can evolve.
Okay. So you talked about vision, you talked about meditation, you talked about aphorism.
Well, those are not actually the 4 principal techniques of the warrior. I know that we're going to be going into them in future episodes. The 4 principal techniques are dreaming, not doing, erasing personal history, and recapitulation.
Okay. So we'll save some of that for the future.
We'll have to save some of that for the future. It's pretty in-depth.
Yes. So we've touched on this a little bit, but what diminishes our power and what enhances it?
Great question, and thank you for asking it. Because what diminishes our power is the things we really don't like having in our lives. And what increases our power is the things that make us feel good. For example, attachments to other people, and attachments to suffering, and attachments to all of the different tricks that the ego has, or engaging in all the different things that the ego does to keep control and make us miserable, is a pretty broad list of things that drain our power. And what increases our power is actually feeling unconditional love as our essence within our bodies, and using that as a means of navigating life, using that as a means to engage with other people in all our relationships, using that passion for our work. So the things that we really love and desire about life and enjoy participating in actually increase our personal power, and the things that we don't like are the things that drain us.
Okay, so here's the million-dollar question. Why do people put up with the things that diminish their freedom, happiness, and power? They put up with them.
I've thought a lot about this. And I really think it has to do with that we just weren't taught about that. In our culture, and in most cultures, we weren't taught about those things. We weren't taught, I know I wasn't, that I have a choice over how I'm going to think and feel about anything and everything. And I have a choice about how I'm going to engage with all of the experiences of my life. We were just never taught that. This is ancient wisdom. And tens of thousands of years ago, children were raised in this and taught that. And so they had natural defenses in the way that they were raised to the ego and the suffering that it creates.
It's all connected, it appears to me, to waking up, to becoming aware, so they can get to the place where they have knowledge of, oh, I have a choice here. I have a choice. So right now I don't feel good. I feel crunchy or negative or angry or resentful. So that means I know I'm not connected to power. I know I'm not in the flow. I know I'm not living my highest self. So where do I need to shift?
Well, you need to wake up in the moment and realize that you have that choice. Wake up in the moment. And the only thing I would add to that is you are using power. You're just channeling power into your negative feelings, which is resulting in making it more difficult to get out of them. I think a great thing to do, I personally know that the acceptance is a power of the human being. So in the moment, we can accept what is, and at the same time not accept the way that we're reacting to it. And instead, use a warrior's principle of navigating the unknown, reminding ourselves that no thing is as it appears to be, and what is this really about? Why is it really going on in my life? And how can I use it to evolve?
And that is the most powerful way to shift out of it. It feels like a soft skill. It feels like software as opposed to the hardware, which to me would be taking action. So becoming aware.
Waking up in the moment.
Waking up in the moment. Making a decision. Figuring it out. Navigating the unknown.
Reminding yourself that no thing is as it appears to be.
Okay, and now actual action steps.
And now asking, the first action would be asking, what is this really about?
Yeah.
And how is it going to help me evolve? And if you get that piece, then you won't recreate it again.
Yeah. And really, people knowing that they don't have to be feeling the way they're feeling. They really don't. It's just because it's been a certain way in the past does not mean that going forward they have to put up with that.
Exactly, and that's where the software piece comes in, which is your past and your programming and your social conditioning, which is why the first order of business on the warrior's path is to remove your social conditioning, to remove your past and your programming, and really admit to yourself that you know very little about life and very little about the awe-inspiring potential of the human being. You do just know that you've only frequently experienced it, and or maybe in some cases haven't experienced it at all. I know I didn't. And to step up and realize that your software programming, your past and your programming, your social conditioning has only served you in the fact that you've gotten some survival skills. And that there must be something so much more to you than you even ever dared to dream about. And that's why it's the first order of business is to remove that on the warrior's path.
So you use the term awe-inspiring. Now, is that only for a few humans, or is that possible for every human?
Great question. It is possible for every human, according to the warrior teachings. And I have found that to be true. If there was a Toltec dictionary and you looked up the meaning of the human being, it would say magical being of the universe. And at first, when I heard that, I had this feeling stir within me of a desire to know more about that and to know in my heart that that's what I wanted in my life without understanding, even scratching the surface of the implications of what it meant to be a magical being of the universe. So today, I will often say to the people that I share these teachings with, I don't think magical being of the universe gets its arms around it. When you remove your social conditioning and your past and your programming, and you take control of your awareness and choose moment by moment how you're going to think and feel about anything and everything, then the teachings begin to open up to you, and who the human being is, I mean really, is it's difficult to describe in words.
Mm-hmm. So for the people out there, John and I have been together for over 8 years. And honestly, this is the kind of conversation we have over coffee nearly every morning for 8 years. Just exploring things, navigating the unknown. And so we were talking the other day and we thought, why not share this with people? So I'm really excited. This is our first conversation in a series that's going to unfold. And I'm inspired by sharing this. So thank you. Thank you for being here. I mean, you're already here, but so I always, and I will continue to ask the last question, which is, how do you recommend that people go out and live their most alive lives?
Maybe the next episode, we're going to get into the 4 aspects of power and how to use them in your life. I would say, to answer your question right now, that to open up to that maybe, just maybe, you are so much more than you've ever been told, taught, or ever even dared to dream about.
Well, and I would say to people out there that is truth, and you can borrow our belief in you until you believe it too. So thank you for this.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it.
It was fun.
Yeah. So if today's conversation resonated with you, please share it with somebody who could use a little encouragement on their journey. And if you're ready to go deeper, I'd love to walk alongside you, whether through my book, a retreat at Paradise Ranch with John and I, one-on-one coaching. You'll find all of it at wakeupwithjoni.com or paradiseranchretreat.com. So until next time, beautiful humans, it's your turn to go out and live your most alive life.